Hello friends, today is Sunday, January 11th, 2026, and I am going to attempt to make the Stylark Sydney dress. I haven't made it before, I don't know how this is going to go, but I asked my friends on Instagram if they would be interested in watching me try to nut this out, and a bunch of you said yes, so that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to try and make this dress, and I'm going to take you along and we can see if it works or not. So the Sydney Stylark dress is this one. The website says it is a designer dress featuring a full cocoon shape, inseam pockets, and a high-low hem. I've seen quite a few people say that it comes out big. So my normal size, according to Stylark's size chart, is an 18 to 20. But I usually size down to an 18 and then often tweak it a little bit to make things a bit smaller than that again. So for this dress, I have cut out a 16, but based on the finished garment measurements, I've also made some other alterations. I did make a very quick and dirty toile of the bodice section of the dress. So the bodice of this one has a seam going across the bust. Now, based on this picture and based on other people that I've seen who have made it, I can't tell where that seam is exactly, but I need that seam to be either well above my bust or well below it. I can't bear a seam straight across the middle of my bust. I just feel like it looks like it doesn't fit me properly, like I've gone for something and I've missed. So I twirled the bodice and it looked like it was going to come just above the bust, but I thought perhaps with the weight of the skirt it would pull it down. So I ended up removing half an inch from the bodice piece. So this is the bodice piece. That's the back. This is the front bodice piece. And I twirled and I thought it might come just a little bit too low. So I've taken off half an inch, and then I think by the time you take off the seam allowance, it will land in the right spot for me. And I also felt like it was a little too wide in the circumference, but more than the bodice, I think the skirt is going to be too wide in the circumference. A lot of people have said that it comes out very voluminous, which it's supposed to be a cocoon shape, but also I don't want it to look clownish. So what I have done is I've taken half an inch from the underarm and I've taken half an inch from the center seam. So this piece is placed on the fold. So I've taken half an inch from each side of the bodice. So that means I've taken a full inch from the front and a full inch from the back. And the skirt pieces, because it is a cocoon shape, are curved. And there's a center front, a center back, and two side pieces. And because they're curved and, panels, I didn't want to try and mess with the curve when I'm doing my alterations. So what I did was just take 1 inch off each of the center, front, and back. So I've just cut the straight edge that goes on the fold. I've taken 1 inch off there. So basically 2 inches total. So under the arms, I've taken half an inch off each side, so that's 1 inch. And then at the center front, I've taken half an inch on each side, so that's 1 inch. So that's 2 inches off the bodice all around. And then in the skirt, I've taken 1 inch off both sides of the front and 1 inch off both sides of the back. So that's 2 inches off the front and 2 inches off the back. Is that right? Yes. So totally I've taken 1 inch off each underarm, 1 inch off each front and back bodice, and 2 inches off each front and back skirt. It's going well so far, right? Do you feel like it's going well? I feel like this is going well. Okay, so that's the changes I've done so far. The fabric I'm using is this Sevenberry ripple cloth. It's basically like a seersucker, and it looks really beautiful. It's not super drapey, but it is kind of drapey. So I think it will hold the cocoon shape, but I think it also won't stick out too stiffly. It's quite narrow, so I've had to cut a lot of it, and I will have to Tetris my pieces, but the pieces are narrow as well, so hopefully I can just sort of, you know, lock them in between each other. This fabric was in my shop, but I talked about it in my last video, and you guys went and bought it all. So I'm sorry that I can't give you any more of it, but I'm also very happy that some of you did grab it. I didn't have very much. There was enough for maybe 3 dress lengths, and you guys went and grabbed it, and there's only a very small remnant left now, like 3/4 of a meter is left. So thank you for that. But also, I don't think I can get any more, but I can try it out if anyone's super interested. I've never really used seersucker before, so the only thing I'm slightly concerned about is how it will press. I want to be quite careful. I don't want to like press out the rumply texture of the seersucker. But also, you know, when you're trying to do your seams and stuff, you do need to press those and make it neat. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know how it's going to go. I haven't made it before. It could all go horribly wrong, and then I will possibly have taught you what not to do. Okay, so I'm going to lay out this fabric. I'm going to get all my pieces cut out, and then I'll come back to you and let you know how it's going. Okay, I am literally making this up as I go along, and I have already come to my first hurdle. So as I'm laying out all these pieces to cut them, I realized if I've taken 1/2 inch off both of the bodice pieces at the center, I'm also going to need to take 1/2 inch off the facing pieces. And that's when I realized I'm going to be reducing the neck opening by 2 inches. And I don't think that's going to work. Not if I want to be able to get it over my big head, right? So as I've laid it out, I don't know if you'll be able to see over here. So those are the bodice pieces. This is the folded edge of the fabric. I've taken off 1/2 inch from each of these pattern pieces, but as I've pinned them, I've measured 1/2 inch away from the fold. So essentially put that 1/2 inch back in. So the 1/2 inch at the center, back and front that I've taken out, I've now put back into the bodice. I've still taken 1/2 inch off each underarm. So 1/2 inch off the front, 1/2 inch off the back, off both sides. That's still 2 inches total around the circumference, leaving the neckline intact. So now for the center, back and skirt pieces, I guess I will do the same. I'll add 1/2 inch at each center side, each center piece back in. So I'll be taking 1 inch from the front and 1 inch from the back instead of 2. And I think that's just going to have to do. Because my problem is there's no, I don't think there's any gathering between the bodice and the skirt. It fits in perfectly. So if it was a gathered skirt, I could take out as much or as little out of each piece, and I could just adjust the gathering to make it fit either way. But I'm pretty sure with this one, there's no gathering, so it has to fit. So whatever size the bodice circumference is, the skirt circumference has to be the same. And because these skirt pieces are all curved, and they also have to fit into a curved hemband, I'm scared to alter them too much because I don't know how that's going to work. Yeah, so we're working this out as we go, friends. I don't know. It may be boring, it may be terrible, or it may be interesting, and you may learn from my mistakes. Let's hope. All right, I'm going to get back to this and pin out all my pieces and then cut them out. Okay, all of my pieces are laid out and pinned. Couple things. The pattern cover says that for a size 16, which I'm cutting, or I think up to a size 20, sizes 4 through 20 require 3 meters or 3.4 yards of a 148 wide fabric. Now my fabric is only 110 wide, or about 42 inches. So I cut 3.3 meters off of the bolt, and I was worried it would shrink a bit because it's 100% cotton and it's seersucker, but it actually barely shrank at all, like less than 5 centimeters, I think. So I've still got a good like 3¼ meters of this fabric, and it's pretty spot on. I've got maybe, I've got maybe 15 to 20 centimeters of bare fabric left at the end. So yeah, just a tiny bit over 3 meters you would need for this size, a size 16. And I'm able to, let me see if I can put you down a bit. There we go. So see how I've got, these are the center, front and back, and these are the side pieces. And I've been able to like sort of offset them and lay them out side by side. In larger sizes or narrower fabric, you might not be able to do that, but it has worked for this size. Now, the other thing about, actually a lot of patterns, not just style arc. The other thing I have a problem with is pockets. I always think that they're too small. So this is the style arc pocket piece, and that's like my hand. Like, you're not going to get a mobile phone in there, and maybe you wouldn't want to, sorry, let me talk to you while you hi. So maybe you wouldn't put your mobile phone in this dress, you probably wouldn't, but I like the option, right? If you're going to have pockets, I want them big enough to put my hands in. So normally I use another pocket piece that I've taken from another dress, but these pockets actually go into, so there's a center front seam and then side panels, and these pockets actually go into these panels. So I'm not going to use my normal pocket piece that I normally just put into side panels, because again, these are curved and the pocket piece is curved. So I'm going to use this pocket, but I'm going to cut it slightly bigger, I think. I'll just extend the bottom down a bit to make it a bit bigger so that I can actually get my hands in there. And another thing I find with a lot of pattern companies is that the pockets are way too low. So I'm going to measure where they're supposed to be, and I'll probably raise them, I would think, by a good 2 to 3 inches. Because I mean, even in the pattern, it looks like their hands are like way down, like below their hips. And I would rather have my pockets be like, I don't know, waist height maybe. So those are two things I am definitely going to do. So I'll just probably trace around the bottom of the pocket, maybe with a French curve and a chalk pen or something, and just make it a little bit longer. Yeah. And I was raised in the old ways before rotary cutters existed. So I do use pins and scissors when I'm sewing garments. I mean, obviously I'm a quilter, so I'm well versed in the art of the rotary cutter. But for some reason, when I'm cutting garments, I still like to use scissors and pins. And I think part of the reason for that is because I have these beautiful fancy scissors from Merchant and Mills. They were a Christmas present from my husband, in the way that I bought them for myself and told them that's what he got me for Christmas. But also they make this excellent sound. And if you ask me, that's half the enjoyment of sewing, is that sound. So I'm a scissors girl and I stand by it. Okay, so now I'm going to cut all these pieces out and come back and show you what I do next. Okay, so I have all of my pieces cut out, and I've cut out the interfacing as well for, now at the top of the style arc pattern there's like a helpful hint section, and it says in there to fuse the neck facings and the hemband. But in the actual instructions, or the cutting layout, it doesn't say to cut interfacing for the hemband, and it doesn't say on the pattern piece to cut interfacing for the hembands. But I did anyway. I don't know if I should have or not, but I did. So we'll see how that goes. And for the neck facings, which I have here, I'll just show you. I'll just show you. Let me put you down. So I use this woven interfacing, which is available in my shop as well. But the instructions say, well, as most instructions say, to fuse the interfacing to the wrong side of your pieces. So this is the gluey side of the interfacing and this is the wrong side of the fabric. So you would iron them together. But what I'm going to try is I'm going to sew along the bottom edge of the interfacing and the neck facing, right sides together. So the sticky side facing out and the wrong side of the fabric facing out. And then I'm going to sew along the outside edge of that facing, and then I'll flip it around and then press it so that the interfacing will be pressed to the wrong side of the facing, but there'll be a neat sewn edge rather than an overlocked edge on the inside. Does that make sense? I'll show you when I do it. So yeah, I've cut the interfacing for the neck facings and the hemband. I've got to figure out this camera situation. I've cut the interfacing for the neck facings and the hembands. There is a video tutorial from Style Arc for this dress, but it seems fairly straightforward. In the video of the bit where she attaches the hem facing, it looks like it is interfaced, even though it doesn't say to in the pattern cutting instructions, and I don't think she says to do it in the video either. It does say it at the start of the pattern, so I'm going to. It probably doesn't matter that much, but we'll do it anyway. Oh, also wanted to mention, which I forgot to say before, I get my patterns printed, my A0 patterns printed at the Dahlia Society. Kristen does a fantastic job. It's only $5 a page. And I guess for that you could buy printed already patterns, but I like to have the backup of the PDF so that if something happens to the printed pattern, I can print it again if I want to. And I don't actually mind piecing together A4 sheets, but sometimes as a treat, it's nice to just get it done. And also usually I do like to trace my patterns onto like a tracing pattern paper stuff. But I felt with this project, it was the idea of doing that was holding me back. I didn't want to, and I wasn't convinced it was going to work out anyway. And I've got no idea if the style will even suit me. So I've just gone rogue and cut the paper. But I don't normally do that. I do like to have a nice copy and then to be able to tweak on my traced version. Anyway, this one I have just cut out. I'm going to go I'm going to go stitch my neck edges and then sew my interfacing to the outside edges of those neck facings. And I'll come back and tell you how I go. For the hembands, I am just going to press the interfacing to the hembands because I'm pretty sure you fold those up and the raw edges or the overlocked edges are going to be enclosed in a seam anyway, I think. Could be wrong. We'll see how we go. Hello friends, we're on a bit of a field trip because I sat down to start sewing and realized I only had like a tiny bit left of the only thread I had that matched my fabric. So for a chronic overthinker, I have come to this project grossly underprepared. So we've just popped off to Spotlight and I'm going to grab some more thread and then we'll go home and get to sewing. Mission accomplished. There was only one of the color that I needed in the space for it, but I poked around in some of the other spaces and I found a second one. So now I'll have plenty of thread. And I was tempted by the rayons that are 40% off today, but I resisted. You'll be very proud of me. I did not buy any fabric today. Okay, let's go home and try again. Okay, so after I cut everything out, I stopped to have some lunch and then I realized I didn't have enough thread. So then I went to Spotlight, then I came home and then I had a little ice cream as a treat and then I started sewing. It is 2 p.m. and I've just put my first stitches in this project. We're doing well. Okay, so the first thing I did was to carefully stay stitch the inner curve of the neck facings. And then what I did was put the interfacing non-adhesive side, right sides together with the fabric, and I've stitched around the outside curve. Now, normally the instructions will tell you to fuse the fabric and then like just overlock the edge to neaten it. But then when you sew it on, you'll just have like the overlocked edge on the inside. But if you do it this way, hopefully you'll have nice enclosed seams. So those are right sides together, and I'm going to go around this outside edge. I'll show you on the white side so you can see. Go around the outside edge and just clip into this curve. I may trim some of the bulk all the way around as well. And then I'll fold it out like this. And then the adhesive side will be towards the wrong side of the fabric, and then I'll press it to fuse it. Even though, I mean, it doesn't probably strictly even need to be fused at that stage because it's all going to be enclosed, but it will still give it that structure once you fuse it. Okay, so that is what I'm doing now. Okay, I'll just try and show you how I'm doing this. I apologize for the state of my ironing board. I feel like I just got a new cover not even that long ago, and I try to be really careful with it, but somehow it just always gets burn marks on it, even though I literally never burn any of my fabric. I don't know how this happens, but here we are. So I flipped it out the right way, and then you just want to be careful along this edge to make sure, I mean, pretty much anytime you're doing any kind of facing, I'm sure you know this. Where am I? Just make sure that the interfacing side is rolled to the inside of the facing side, so that when you're looking at it from the right side, there's no white bit sticking out. You could also understitch this, would probably be a good idea, but I didn't. And I've already trimmed my seams, so I'm not going to. So yeah, so now I'll just carefully press this so that it fuses. And being careful not to get any glue on my ironing board or my iron. I might put my pressing cloth underneath just in case there's any sticky sides if they're not exactly the same size. Yeah. So just like that. And then the facing piece on the inside will look like that, nice and neat. While I remember and while I'm working on the facings, I'm going to go ahead and put my label on, because that's exactly the type of thing I would usually forget to do. And also I'm going to use one of my favorite ever labels, because much like my fabric, I save them. I have so many labels, but I save them because I'm always worried that, well, you know, I don't want to put best make ever label in something halfway through, and then when I finish I actually don't like it, and then I've wasted that label and it makes me sad. So I'm too scared to use them. But this time I'm going to use one of my most favorite labels. I got it just recently. It's from Cozy Club Handmade, and it says "Be brave and a little bit wild." Now, this fabric is not strictly animal print, but I think it's vaguely reminiscent in some ways. And putting this label on right now and filming this video about a dress that I don't know how to make and don't know if it's going to fit me is also a little bit brave. So it seems fitting. And I guess if it doesn't work out and I really hate it, I could always unpick the label and take it out. So I'm just going to put some glue on this label so that it will hopefully stay where I want it while I'm sewing it. This is actually, well, it's packaged like this for English paper piecing, but it's just a glue stick. It's just like a stick of clear drying, washable, water-based glue. You could use any kind of glue stick. I'm just going to stick that on there, and then I'll take it to the sewing machine and sew around the outside. And then hopefully all this works beautifully, and I'll be so happy to have used one of my favorite labels. All right, I've now overlocked well, I've attached the front and back together at the shoulder seams and overlocked those seams. And then the next step was to attach the neck facing to the neckband, which I have done. But somehow the back facing, where are we? The back facing piece fit perfectly. So that was great. But the front facing piece, the neckline of the outer was bigger than the neckline of the facing. So I don't know how that happened. If the outside maybe had stretched out a bit somehow. I don't know how, because I like immediately stay stitched it as soon as I took the pattern piece off. Or if maybe the facing shrunk up a bit when I interfaced it. I'm not sure. But the way I fixed it was to just shave off tiny amounts of the outer of the neckline until it fit to the facing. So the front neck maybe dipped slightly lower than it is intended to be in the pattern, but I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me, I don't think. I guess we'll find out. And the other thing I realized that I may have screwed up was because I took 1/2 inch off the bottom bodice, of the paper pattern piece of the bottom bodice. I took 1/2 inch off, and because I was using the actual pattern and I hadn't traced it, I forgot to transfer the markings for where to attach the skirt. Now there's only one, I think, only one marking on each side. It's probably, you know, I would say like center, side, front and back where the skirt panels attach. So I think it's probably going to be fine, but we will find out if that's going to be a problem. Okay, I'm going to go sew the neckline. Okay, so I've attached the facing and I have understitched the facing. So I pressed the facing, all the seam allowances towards the facing, and then I stitched close on the facing side from the right side of the facing. So there's a line of stitching on the facing side. Does anybody know why they tell you to stitch it from the right side? Because it seems like the seams are so small, right? And you're stitching the seam allowances towards the facing. The point of understitching is to stitch those seam allowances to the facing. But they always tell you to do it from the right side of the fabric. And I'm wondering why, because it seems like it would be much easier to control those facings from the wrong side. I mean, I'll do as I'm told. I'm just wondering if anybody knows the reasoning behind that. And so the next job is to flip the facing to the inside of the bodice, and then I'm going to top stitch all the way around close to the edge of the facing. So there'll be a row of top stitching, probably like a good 1.5 inches around the neckline. Now the only, it's not a problem, but the only concern I maybe have, I was worried before I started about pressing out the wrinkles of the seersucker, or the, you know, the puckers. I was a bit worried about pressing them and damaging the texture. But I think actually one of the characteristics of seersucker is that it just doesn't take a press very well. So pressing this neck facing down, pinning it so that it all stays nice and flat while I top stitch it down may be a little bit tricky, but I will do my best and let you know how I go. Okay, so what I'm doing here is, this is the facing and this is the outer of the garment, and I'm just sewing very close to the edge of the facing, so it's top stitching it on the other side. So I line the facing up with the inside of my foot to make sure that I get it nice and close to the edge without hopefully missing any. And as I go, I'm kind of just trying to make sure that the outer shell, the fabric that's on the bottom, is like spread out nicely, so there's no puckers or pulls anywhere, hopefully, when we get to the end. see how we did. I think it looks pretty good. I will give it a good press, even though, like I said, the seersucker doesn't really love to be pressed. But it looks pretty even, and I don't think there's any like puckers or pleats anywhere. So hopefully that's worked well. Okay, I have finished sewing the bodice. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm not going to put it on for you because it does indeed come well above my bust, and I'm far too old to be getting done for being indecent on YouTube. I'm very happy with my little label. I think that looks great. The top stitching on the neck turned out pretty good. There's no like puckering or bubbling or anything. And the sleeves are grown on. And the next step in the pattern is to start tackling the skirt and the pockets and all of that. But the sleeve has like a double fold cuff situation. I think you like fold it in and then fold it back or something like that. And I think it's going to be easier to do that before the skirt is attached, just less fabric to faff about with. So I'll probably do the sleeves next, then I'll tackle the pockets, and then I'll finish the skirt. But I also want to get a newsletter out today for my newsletter subscribers, and it's already 4:20, and I like to put my newsletter out at 7, and I haven't even started it or thought about it, and it's the first one for the year, so I need to go and do that. Because I don't want to miss it again, basically. So I'm going to put this aside for now. I'm going to go write my newsletter, probably have some dinner, and then if I have the energy and the light, I might come back and do some more of this tonight. Okay, I'll see you soon. Okay, I'm back. I have put out my newsletter, I've had some dinner, and I've finished my sleeves. It is completely dark outside now, so I don't know how the light's going to be, but I have some big lights on in here, which hopefully it looks okay. But I didn't want to wait till tomorrow while I still had some energy left in me, so I've decided to keep working. All right, so the way they have you do the sleeve is to fold a big chunk of it to the inside, overlock and top stitch it, and then fold it back to make a cuff, something like that. So that's the sleeve with the cuff. And the instructions tell you just to press it like that and then do a couple of hand tacking stitches at the underarm to keep it there. And then ideally it will just stay like that. But given the fabric that I'm using, I'm not sure if it actually will stay like that. So I may need to hand tuck it in a few places, or maybe like hand stitch it down all the way around, or I might just top stitch it like the same way I did on the neck facing, and then it will kind of match maybe. But we'll see how we go. I'll leave it like that for now. That's pretty much done. And now the next thing I have to do is attach the pockets to the front panels. Stylark has their own sort of unique way of attaching pockets, which I have tried a couple of times, but I can't really get along with it. So I think I'm probably just going to do them the normal inseam way. Also one pocket bag to one side, one to the other side, and then sew around them together. You know, just like you normally do. Because I can't be bothered faffing about with the other way, even though it probably does look nicer if you do it right, but I've yet to do it right. So I'm going to do the normal pocket way. I'll figure out where exactly I want the pockets to be, and I'll come back and let you know how much I raised them by and how it works out. See you soon. Quick pocket check-in, and didn't show you how I enlarged the pockets. So just like that, basically, I've just pinned the pocket piece on, and then I sort of just followed the curve to make it a bit longer, and then brought it back up to meet the bottom of the pocket bag as it was. So I've done that to all 4 pockets, and then before I attach them to the dress, I like to overlock the edges.
So I overlock the pocket bag edges, then I attach them to the dress, then I overlock this side seam. And then once I actually attach all of the dress together, I only have to overlock sort of, below the pockets. That's how I like to do it. And I've sort of popped on the bodice and held up the center front piece. Because if you remember, there's a center front and then the pockets kind of go in between the center front and the side panel. So they're not like hip inseam pockets, side seam pockets. They are like sort of in the front. And I have estimated that I'm going to raise them by 2.5 inches. So we'll try that. Good morning, my dears. It is the next day now. When I left you last night, I was preparing the pockets. And since then, I have attached the pockets. And I've attached the front skirt to the side front skirts. And I must admit, I'm not feeling super confident about how this is going to go. I mean, the dress will be fine. Like, it's coming together perfectly. The drafting is fantastic. The fabric is beautiful. Just not sure it's gonna suit me or if I will like the way it looks on me. It does seem to be very voluminous, which, I mean, like, obviously it's voluminous. It's supposed to be a cocoon shape, but if I hold this up against myself and kind of like pretend that it's a dress, it looks less cocoon and more like diamond, maybe. I don't know. It just looks a bit pointy. Maybe the fabric's not drapey enough. Maybe the style just is not for me. But I'm going to finish it and hope for the best. And I need to finish it quick sticks, really, because it's Monday morning and I have orders to pack and cut. And this is the situation on my cutting table. So lots of work to do. I have to, well, not that much work to do. I have to attach the center back to the side back, attach the side seams, and then there is a hemband on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is attach all the skirt pieces together. But before I overlock them, I'm going to baste them to the bodice and just see if it's going to be too much. And if it is too much, I'll reevaluate. And if I think it will be okay, then I'll overlock and attach and do the hembands. See how we go. I will sew the skirt together, attach it to the bodice, and show you what we've got. Just a quick note on keeping your pattern pieces straight. Well, by straight I mean organized, not like literally straight. Because they are all curved and there's a lot of pieces, well, 6 pieces, and they're all curved and they all are like barrel shaped. And then once you've cut them out, it's pretty much impossible to tell the difference between what's the top and what's the bottom and which way they go and what they connect to. So anyway, I've just made these little bits of paper that I pinned onto them as I was removing the pattern pieces so that I would know this is the side back and this is the side that attaches to the center piece. And it's the same on the other piece as well. So now I can't get them mixed up. Hi. If you remember back at the beginning, I said I wanted to take a couple of inches of volume out of the skirt. And I was going to do that at the center seams and then realized I couldn't do that because I had to fit the bodice and the bodice had to fit the neck. So what I have done, the seam allowance on this pattern is 3/8 of an inch. And I need the circumference of the skirt at the top and bottom to remain the same so that they can attach to the bodice and the hemband. But I want to take volume out of the sides. So what I'm doing is I'm starting my seams at 3/8 of an inch. And then once I get going, I'm grading it out to 5/8 of an inch. So that means I'm taking a 1/4 inch off every piece, a 1/2 inch off every seam. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 seams. So theoretically then I should be taking 3 inches of volume out of the barrel of the skirt. Is that right? I think that's what I'm doing. So I'm just going to show you as I come to the end of this seam here. I'm sewing the side back to the center back, and I have graded out to a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And as I come to the end, I'm just going to take this time to make sure I'm back to a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance by the time I get to the end. And that's how I've done that. And so then basically I'm not messing with the curve at all of the pattern. I'm just slightly moving it in, you know, each piece by 1/4 of an inch, probably unnoticeable, but around the entire circumference of the dress, hopefully it will tone it down a little bit. Okay, I've sewn the skirt pieces together. I've basted it to the bodice. And I don't know, maybe I love it. Let's have a look. I keep looking for the pockets in the side seams, but they're not in the side seams, they're in the front seams, which is kind of cute, right? Like, I look like the drawing on the pattern cover. It is voluminous. There's a lot of fabric. It still needs a hemband. It's supposed to have a high-low hem. Not totally sure how I feel about that. Would I like it better if it was straight across? Not sure. I think the placement of the seam here is pretty good. I took a 5/8 inch seam allowance when I basted this together because I did want to pull it up a bit more. I could still stand to have it a bit higher, I think, but then there's not much room under the underarm to really raise that up any further. So that's probably the best I'm going to get. Sleeves look cute. They stick out a bit, but that's probably because of the nature of the fabric. Like this bit here sticks out a bit. If it was a drapier fabric, it probably would sit a bit flat, but I think that's okay. Yeah, it is. There's a lot going on here, and if you're opposed to looking, you know, bigger than you are, when people say, oh, it's not flattering, it makes you look bigger. If you don't like that, then this might not be for you. But I'm not really sure I care about that these days, you know. I've said this before, but it's not my main goal in life to make myself look smaller. But you know, I mean, I don't want to look clownish either. But I think especially like with hands in pockets, it looks pretty cute. You know. So I do need to unpick this then, and I'm going to overlock all the side seams, or all the skirt seams, sides and backs and all of that. And then I'll sew it back together. I think I'm happy with the volume. I could take some more out, but I think it wouldn't make that much difference. I think at this stage, let's just embrace it, hey? Yeah, so I'll unpick, overlock, and then attach the hemband, and then we're done. Okay, it's finished. I just have a couple notes about how I finished it, and then I'll pop it on and show you what it looks like all done, and then we'll have a bit of a chat. So if you remember the sleeves, I think the instructions said to hand tack under the arm to keep them in place. But because this fabric doesn't press super well, I'm not sure how that will go, but I decided just to stitch in the ditch of the underarm seam. So it's just folded and pressed at the top, but I've stitched it down the ditch of the seam in both underarms. If I find that it flops around at the top a bit, I may hand tack it at the top. And then the other thing is the hemband. I've attached that. It's fine. And they tell you in the pattern to overlock the edges and then just press it up, which is fine. But because this fabric doesn't really care about my feelings when I press it, and I want to make sure the band stays down and the seam allowance stays up, I've decided to stitch it up. So I've just top stitched it with to make sure the seam allowance stays upwards. And then my only other thing maybe would be, because it is, I don't know how well I can show you from this position, because it is a high-low hem. There we go. So what you're looking at the bottom of the screen there is the inside of the back of the dress with a bit of fluff stuck to it. So this is the inside bottom edge, and it's high-low, so when I'm walking around you may be able to see this just overlocked edge, which is probably fine. I picked beige overlocking thread because it matched better with the back side of the fabric, but I didn't know that it would be possibly visible from the front. So yeah, I'm not sure. If I had one complaint about this pattern, it's called the Sydney designer dress. But I feel like if it's a designer dress, I feel like maybe the finishings could be a little more designer. I think if I made it again, I might give it a nicer seam finishing treatment, like French seams or maybe like felt seams or something. Because inside there's lots of seams and they are all just overlocked, you know, which is fine. But it would be nice. It would be nice specifically if the hemband was somehow fully enclosed. I think that would be nicer. And yeah, maybe French seams or flat seams of some kind. Okay, I'm gonna go put it on and then we'll have a chat. All right, catch you soon. Okay, so I've popped it on, it's all finished, and I'll show some footage of me wandering around in it over here. But it doesn't look super different from how it did last time I showed you, but the hemband is on and everything's all done. I think I like it. I like it. Well, I mean, I wanted to like it, otherwise I wouldn't have made it. But I like it more than I thought I would when I was halfway through. I certainly got to a point in the middle where I was like, oh no, everything I feared has come true. But I think actually it's not offensive. I like it. I love the fabric. And I like it, you know, from here up, from what you see right now, absolutely love. I do think it is perhaps a little too poofy in the skirt, but do I care enough to not wear it? I don't think so. I think I will wear it. I think I'll enjoy wearing it. Just a few things to mention. If I was to make it again, I think I would go down to a 14 or perhaps even a 12 in this one, because I did take out, as you saw, quite a lot of volume in both the bodice and the skirt. So even though I would normally wear an 18, I think maybe even a 12 and wider seam allowances in this dress would still work. There is an extension pack for this dress, and I think it comes with a less voluminous skirt, but I don't have that. I may look into getting it if I enjoy wearing this one, but would enjoy it more if it was less excessive. I might. And I think it has extra sleeves as well, which might be cute. I did raise the pockets by 2.5 inches, but I feel like for me they're still a little bit low. Like my fingers are just touching the bottom of the pocket when they're in there. So like if I left them where they were originally, I wouldn't even be able to reach them probably. They'd be so low. But I would probably raise them at least another inch. I don't know, I kind of like them up a bit. And I don't know if the pockets flapping around in there are contributing to the volume a little bit. They may be. I haven't obviously anchored these to anything because the seam is up here and the pockets are like at my hips, below my hips even, well, around my hips. So maybe I would top stitch like around the pocket bags into the front of the skirt maybe. I don't know, I think it would maybe damage the lines a bit. Yeah, maybe not. It may just have to be that way. But I would say, looking back at the footage, although I'm wearing it and I like it and it's comfortable and it feels good, looking back at the footage, it does look a little maternity dress. And as much as I say, like, I'm not worried about looking bigger than I am and I'm not trying to make myself look smaller and all of that, and that is true, but I do still want to make sure that my clothes look like they fit me. I don't want to look like I'm wearing clothes that are too big for me or too small for me, for that matter. Even worse, too small for me. But I don't want to look like I'm wearing somebody else's clothes, right? I want them to look like the style I've chosen is a style I've chosen, not just an ill-fitting garment. But yeah, I think this will be fine for, you know, popping down to the shops or going out for a coffee or, yeah, just casual, comfy, hot weather sort of running around. So yeah, overall, pretty happy with it. Let me know what you think. I suspect there might be opinions about this one, but that's okay. I'm open to your feedback.
If you enjoyed this type of video and want me to make more of them, let me know in the comments below. If you hated it, I'm sorry. Let's pretend it never happened and not speak of it again. Okay, I'm going to go and try and edit this together. I think it's going to be quite long, but I'll do my best, and who knows, maybe next weekend we can make something else together. Okay, friends, I hope you are all happy and well. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you did, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button on the way out if you want to. All right, I love you. Bye.